Okay, here we go. Thanks for listening to Basic Folk, where we have honest conversations with under-the-radar folk musicians. I'm your host, Cindy Howes. Very happy to be with you. Thank you so much for checking out the cast today. We have very special guest Maya de Vitry, whose new album Adaptations is out now. Maya is a former member of the string trio The Stray Birds. I'm going to get into what we're about to talk about in the podcast, but first, I want to thank our sponsors for Basic Folk. So Basic Folk is brought to you in part by Lindsay Myers at LMNO Management. If you love traditional roots music, she wants you to check out Tina and Her Pony's album Champion at tinaandherpony.com or wherever you listen to music. Oh man, I cannot even believe that Maya de Vitry is on Basic Folk today. She is so talented and just one of the most incredible performers, songwriters, musicians that I've come across recently. Of course, I was introduced to Maya at first with the Stray Birds, and just watching her perform it's just magnificent. I've never seen someone feel live music the way that Maya feels it, and got a chance to get to know her at Miles of Music Camp, which is this incredible music camp that takes place in Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire for a week in June. And in fact, registrations just opened up for that camp again. Just got my email last week, all signed up. Very excited to go again to Miles of Music Camp, which I'll link on my website, cindyhouse.net. You can check out information about it. But anyways, back to Maya. So the Stray Birds actually disbanded late summer, early fall. They had a record come out in September, which was pretty excellent. But all the while, for the past couple of years, Maya has been working on her own solo album, which is out now. We're going to hear a song from that release, Adaptations, in just a minute. But Maya and I have a great conversation about her upbringing in Lancaster, PA, her transition into becoming a musician. She has this really incredible story. When she was in kindergarten for show and tell, she brought in her guitar and played everybody Iris Dement's Our Town, and then it's pretty funny what happened to her after that. But she's just a delightful person. She's so smart and so grounded. And I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And I really highly encourage you to check out Maya's full album, Adaptations, which you have to buy a physical copy of or go to Bandcamp because it's not streaming on all of the services, at least for right now. But right now we're going to take a listen to this song called What the Moon Said from Maya de Vitry's Adaptations album. And then we'll get to our conversation with her on Basic Folk.
Letters are made of edges, letters are made of lines. You and I are made of places and times, of being held, of being heard. Rivers are made of oceans, rivers are made of rain. Look at the way its name outgrows a picture, outgrows a frame. Love doesn't cover it. Love doesn't cover it. What the moon said.
All right, Maya de Vitry, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And congratulations on the new album. It's so good. So we're just going to talk about your whole entire life. Is that okay?
Okay, yeah.
All right. So I've met both of your parents, and they are awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about how you grew up and what kind of parents you had? And you have 3 siblings, right?
Yeah, I'm the oldest, and I have 3 younger siblings. And I grew up back a lane in Pennsylvania, little farmhouse, and 7 acres, and my parents kind of like let the farmland that was originally there sort of like grow up a little more wild. So there were like trails and meadows and woods.
Was that intentional that they let it grow up?
Yeah, they didn't, they weren't gonna like farm it. So they just kind of let it, go a little crazy. And I just grew up outside like most of the time. We had a really small house, and I didn't really ever have friends over to play unless it was nice out and we could play outside, because it was just like a little too crazy to have more people in the house. And we had a dog, and I had a really close relationship with all my siblings growing up. It was like a little subculture for me, like different from school. I was like super, super quiet in school.
You led like a double life.
Kind of.
The house, you mentioned the house that you grew up. We talked about this before. It was like very tiny. And I think I want to know like more about how like living in this small house, because your parents now live in a really big house on the same land.
Yeah.
But we talked a little bit more about like how that living in that tiny space, like, do you know how many square footage that small house was?
I could find out, but I don't remember. Like it didn't really occur to me to care at the time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, like it's the only thing that you knew, but I was wondering, like, how do you think living in that smaller house along with your parents and your you had 2 siblings at the time, how that affected you and your personality?
Yeah. Well, there were ultimately all 4 kids living in that house, because we moved. We didn't move into the bigger house until I was a junior in high school. So Nina, the youngest, was probably like 9 or 10 around that time. But like I remember when you go to school and they have a little piece of paper about study skills, and they're like, make sure that you have, do you have, yes or no, maybe or never, do you have a quiet space to study and do your homework?
Oh, yeah.
That's like away from people. And I was just like, yes. Like I'm not going to say never, because then they're going to pull me out of class and, intervene or something. And I was like, there's nothing wrong. Like I never do have a quiet space, but I just had to like learn to make a quiet space. So I got really, really good at like selectively paying attention to things that were going on. I could contain my belongings and my projects and my thoughts in like a really small area. Like I could just like sit on the corner of the couch, and somebody could be watching Seinfeld, and somebody could be like building something in the middle of the room, and the dog could be running around, and I'm just sitting on the corner of the couch doing my vocab homework, and that's like no problem. So I just got used to that, and I think I like fantasized a little bit about having like a space of my own, but I could just go outside for that. Ultimately, I could just take a walk. Or I think each kid seemed to have certain spaces outside that they would go and like sort of create like a little, this was like their spot that they would go, like Lyle and Nina, my youngest 2 siblings, they like carved out, I thought it was kind of just like a big briar bush. It was a massive like overgrown area, and they just like dug into it and kind of carved out the middle part, and it was just these vines, and it wasn't thorny in there anymore, but they had like, it was like a little house like inside of this, they called it Bush Town, and they would just like go to Bush Town and like crawl around under there, and it was their little spot where they would just like look for rabbits and hang out.
Oh wow, that's reminding me of like the little spaces that me and my brother would have as kids. Yeah. That's great. Okay, so let's get into the music that was around you as a kid. It sounds like everyone played, and you were like constantly surrounded by this like really lovely music community in Lancaster.
Yeah, well, we had a lot of music in the house too, like recorded music, and there was a CD. There was a CD player and kind of these built-in shelves on the wall, and the futon was just backed up right against that. So, even if you were a little kid, you could kind of just climb up on the futon and reach the CD player and pull CDs off and see what was there and put stuff in. And I have like a really vivid memory of listening to Iris Dement and reading the liner notes, which were, I think, written by John Prine. and kind of like taking the music in, like all, I don't know, that was like another way to sort of be like, I'm just over here now. I'm not paying attention to anything else that's going on. I'm just going to I'm going to be perched on the top of this futon, and I'm listening to this CD. Even though it was like a really shared experience because it's coming out of the speakers, like everybody else can hear it. I was holding the CD, like the liner notes or whatever, and I felt really connected and like I was in my own little space. And we had a lot of Beatles music and just so many recordings too to like explore.
Before we get into like talking about the actual like playing music, I read about this really lovely story about your singing Iris Dement's Our Town on show and tell day in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Can you tell that story?
Sure. Yeah, I think my parents, so I was the oldest, so they kind of kept me home for like one extra year. I think they realized like you could send a kid to school when they're 5, but they sent me when I was 6 to kindergarten. And they had not been like specifically homeschooling me, but they were really interactive and really, just they were like teaching me math like on the chalkboard at home and not, but not making it, seem formal. And one of the things that I learned when I was like 5 or 6 was, there was like a tiny little guitar at the house, and probably because I loved Iris Dement, I don't know why, but they taught me to sing and play Our Town, which has all these lyrics about like, you're burying your parents and you're wrecking your car and there's beer and all the, had your first beer at the bar, and
not 6-year-old stuff.
Not really 6-year-old stuff, but it didn't seem weird to me. And also with the live music stuff, like my parents would have their friends over and have bonfires and like, campouts, and their friends would come over and they would play songs and play music around the campfire, and they would drink beer, and they would, there was that, and there were lightning bugs, like, and she talks about sit on the porch and watch the lightning bugs fly, like, and I was just like, yeah, of course I'm in this song, like I love this. So I learned that, and I remember learning like really, really easy versions of D and G, like, so I could hardly need to move my little hand at all on the guitar. And I think it was a combination of, I remember that I played that in show and tell in kindergarten. I just went in with a little guitar and just was like, well, I have a song to show. And I think that was kind of weird. And then, and I was also really obsessed with Pippi Longstocking. And she, she's like, I guess there are these scenes in the books where she's just like really good at math. And I wanted to be as good as, as strong and as good at math as Pippi Longstocking. And I remember like showing, somebody was doing like addition, like basic addition in the kindergarten classroom. And I was like, well, or you can do this. And I started to like kind of try to tell them about multiplication. And I think the teacher was just like, I think you got to go to first grade. we can't have this. So they pulled me out and talked to me, and I did some tests, and they sent me to first grade by Thanksgiving. But every, in school for the first couple of years, people would always be like, oh, Maya, she's so smart, she like skipped a grade. And I'm like, no, my parents just kept me home for an extra year, and now I'm in the grade I'm supposed to be in. Like, I was never young for my grade. I was never, it's like, it was just that I had done kindergarten at home. And so I would like always very, very strongly clarify that. Like, no, like, this is, how old are you? Yeah, me too. Like, we're the same age. This is the grade I'm supposed to be in.
Please don't give me any extra attention.
Yeah, pretty much. You don't understand. I just loved Pippi and Iris Dement.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So like give me a sense of like the playing music at home, what that was like for you.
It was just fun. That's like my first memory of it. It was fun. Like, people around a campfire, we'd build the fire and light some torches so people could like walk down the path to where the fire was. I just remember falling asleep like outside. It would be summertime, and I wasn't playing music at that time necessarily. I was like, maybe really young, like 6 and 7. And then when I was 7, I started taking piano lessons from my dad's mom, from my grandmother. That was my first regular, like, sit down and learn music kind of experience on an instrument. Then I started playing the violin. I guess I was 8, and it was with the public school string program. And I liked practicing. I liked playing. I wanted to play the violin because my dad also he played fiddle. I didn't even like see the string demonstration that they did because I think I started violin lessons like a year early in school too, and everybody else like started in 4th grade, and they let me start in 3rd grade. Yeah, I remember by the time I actually saw the string demonstration in 4th grade, like along with everyone else, I was like, wait a second. I didn't know about the cello. And and then there was a time when I, like around like 6th grade, that I, because then my sister Monica, who's like 2 years younger than me, and then my brother also 2 years younger than her. So the next immediate 2 siblings chose the cello. And so I was like, I think I'm going to switch to the cello. Like, it's just a cooler instrument. I want to play the cello. And they were like, no, you can't do that. The cello is ours. Like, you can't switch to the cello. Oh. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll stick with the violin. But and it's fine. And I'm happy that I stuck with the violin, and it's because it's so like little and portable. It's led to like other adventures in my life that you just can't as easily have with a cello.
Right. Yeah, if you like are touring in New York City, you can just bring it with you.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about leaving it in the car.
Yeah. But also, as I got really, really into fiddle music and running around festivals with an instrument, I was glad to be playing the fiddle. But there was that time when I was like, that is a cool instrument. How did I miss the memo on the cello? Yeah. I was too excited to just play anything that I took the violin.
I get the sense that you are also interested in creating like physical art forms.
Yeah.
Like painting and stuff.
Yeah, that was a big part of my childhood too, actually. We called it the walnut cupboard, and there was just this big like storage thing, like a walnut cupboard in the kitchen, and the couple of the like middle shelves were just like filled with art supplies. So just open it up, pull some paper out, pull some paints out. It was just very accessible. And my mom could just be like cooking or working in the kitchen, and we're just all in the kitchen, and someone was probably like roller skating around the kitchen table at the time. But yeah, we could just make stuff. And my dad is an architect, and he is a really good visual artist. And now my mom has gone back to school and has like taken up painting, like kind of like after being a full-time mom. And she was a nurse until the 4th kid. Then she was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. And now she is painting again. But both of them have a really strong gift for art, and just made it available to us and made us feel like, why wouldn't you do this? You're bored, like, here's some paints.
I read a funny tweet yesterday that was like, after you turn 35, being bored is fun.
That's great.
But when you're a kid, you gotta, be entertained. So Maya, what moved you to start writing your own songs, and what was your experience like when you first started performing your original songs, since you're such a shy kid?
I wrote a lot. I have journals going like way, way back to when I was a kid. It's funny, like my boyfriend and I have analyzed like what we put in our journals. And
does he also keep journals?
He does, but not with any, I guess, like zest that I have. But and because I've like shared an entry here or there, as it was like, hey, like read me something from when you were like 18 or whatever.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and he'll just like make a list of like the things that he does during a day and be like, I did this, and then I went to blah, blah, blah. Then I rode my bike to the grocery store, and then I went and got a hot dog or whatever.
Yeah.
And mine is just like constantly processing like how I feel.
Wow.
So it was like a little more of like what I was doing at the time, but a lot of it is just me trying to like navigate feelings. So that's cool that those journals exist, and that I can kind of see how I can sort of see where I was starting to like feel constrained by school, because the public school I was in, I really wanted to do well. I wanted to please people. Like, and so in that setting, that meant, just like doing well academically and taking the AP classes, and, and not even my parents. Like, my parents were never like, you better get good grades. They just like never parented us that way. But I think like for my teachers, I wanted to like please my teachers and have a good relationship with them. And like even like learning like the 5-paragraph essay, I remember maybe this was dangerously empowering to me when the teacher gave me this feedback, but I've turned in some essay that I knew was supposed to be written in a different format. This was in like 11th grade. I was like, but like, how can I say this like in that strict format? Like, and so I just didn't say anything, and I just turned in something else. It was different, just like the way that, I guess like the order that the ideas were presented, just there were some things that were not according to like the rubric. And I was like, well, if there's a rubric, and at least if this part has to do with like this actual structure, and like even if I lose all those points, I'm gonna knock it out of the park on the rest of it. And maybe she'll like still call on me in class if I ever happen to raise my hand. So
wow. So
I turned it in, and she said she was like, it's so well written that it's okay that you didn't do that part. And, she acknowledged that I did it wrong, but also she was like, you're a really good writer. And then she was like, I can't wait to read your published work someday. And I was like, whoa. And I just felt this sense of like, wait, like maybe there's like something else. Like maybe I don't have to just write 5-paragraph essays and get into Penn State. What else could I be writing? Like, what other forms? Like, wait, I could write books. I can write things that feel more, I could write an essay that feels more like poetry to me. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, it sounds like you found out at an early age that adults don't know everything.
Yeah. So I was like getting, like, maybe that would have happened earlier if I had been at like some kind of alternative school or some kind of more like choose your own adventure education. But I was in like a very, very traditional, like high achieving suburban Pennsylvania state situation. And it was, I think had a few teachers been less receptive, I think I could have gone in a different direction and been frustrated to the point of like, just like angst and depression by the situation. But I think there were like a few teachers that I felt like I could be more expressive, and it would still fit in the guidelines or whatever. So I'm like really grateful for that. And I think that's some of the first times that I like really started to feel like connected to the written word as like a way to express myself, like outside of a journal. And I mean, it just started to move fast from the time I was like 16 and 17, and kind of getting some of that feedback and feeling like I really loved writing, and was becoming more willing to like take a risk and share what I was writing. And even if it was just with, a teacher. By the time I was like 19 and 20, I was traveling and playing fiddle on the street, like busking, and listening to songs a lot at night while I was like falling asleep. I remember I had like a little iPod. I think it was just an iPod. That's what they were called, right? Like with
That's
me,
right,
it was
yes.
like listening to some songs while I would fall asleep.
Was
at
it
night.
a Nano?
I don't know. I never had a Nano. I know that I never had a Nano. I was just listening to some music at night, and I remember listening to Townes Van Zandt around that time, like for the first time. And
yeah, he was a big deal for you.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like it was a specific song too. It's not like I even like know his like work extensively, but that song "To Live Is to Fly," it just like really, really hit me, and I saw that song. I think it was like the simplicity of the melody, and like his lyrics were like poetry to me, and I saw that I saw those like embedded and started to hear it that way. And so yeah, one day I just like wrote in my journal, like, go home and write songs. Like I just was inspired to like, I just like haven't been off that kick since. Like that's been my chosen like medium.
So I get a few questions about the Stray Birds. So Stray Birds, everyone was from Lancaster, and that's essentially like how everybody got together.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Stray Birds met and maybe recorded an EP. And then did you go to Berkeley for a little while?
So I was like, after I wrote in my journal, like, go home, write songs, came home, I wanted to apply to go to Berkeley. So I did, and I did this audition, and I was kind of like getting prepared to go up there.
What were you auditioning with?
I was auditioning on violin. Because that was the thing. I could like read music. I could read music for violin. I definitely didn't think of myself as a singer or a guitar player at the time. And I thought maybe I can get into violin. I played like Bach suites on the violin to like get into Berkeley. The whole time I was like, I actually should have been like practicing more violin. I was just hiding away in the basement bathroom at my parents' house. And this is like the new big house. I was like hiding away in the basement working on songs. And I met Oliver Craven around that time. And we would go and like play songs at open mics around Lancaster. And eventually I was like, yeah, I'm going to make an EP of songs to take up to Boston to be like a songwriter. Like I kind of want to be writing songs too. I was very like timid about this though, because I think it was really hard for me to like it felt like such a leap to like open my mouth on stage after just playing fiddle in a couple bands and playing violin in the orchestra. Like writing itself had been very private, and now I was like, okay, wow, I want to sing these songs. And so he was like, oh, I'll help you arrange these, and I'll play some mandolin, and then eventually he and I, really the first recording, Borderland, basically he and I went into the studio at our friend Jeff Coleman's place like over the course of the summer. I don't even think Charlie was a part of any of those sessions. Like I think he came and he sort of added the bass like after the fact, like, but Oliver and I were initially like just putting this music together. It was sort of a combination of like that time, and I think the transition for me to go up to Boston, but I'm still like trying to figure out like why I made certain choices at certain times. But basically my aim to release that like an EP and to have kind of like a calling card in my pocket to go connect with the songwriter scene in Boston, and all of that just sort of over the course of the next like year or so, as the Stray Birds sort of like gelled together, like that EP became the Stray Birds Borderland. And then there was like in my journal, I've got a list of songs that I was like, all right, next recording project, because that one had kind of like gotten away from me in a way. But it was also like I was happy to have someone who was enthusiastic about this material and who wanted to sing harmonies and wanted to play on it. It was just a vulnerable time for me, like creatively. But in my journal, I have this list of songs. It's like, all right, next project, solo record, full length. And there's a bunch of songs that then became the first full length Stray Birds.
Oh, wow.
So, and it was like really haunting to me when I found those journals one day and was like, wow, there's a reason that I have like physical discomfort with like creatively still in this project. Like there was something else that I had in mind that I suspended, and the Stray Birds, I'm glad that everything happened as it did, and it's great, and we learned so much, and I'm really excited for us individually now to kind of like navigate the music world with everything that we now have learned, and but yeah, it was a really vulnerable time for me, and I was so excited to just have somebody else excited about what I was doing, and it felt like it felt much less scary to go sing showcases at the Northeast Regional Folk Alliance with a band that was like, hi, at NERFA, like, we're the Stray Birds. It wasn't like, hey, I'm Maya, I'm going to sing you a song. Like, so, I mean, it's taken me a long time. I'm going up to Folk Alliance in Montreal in February, and I'm like purposefully going completely alone. I'm not going to play with anyone else. I'm going to play showcases, me and the guitar, because I know that's going to be the most difficult thing for me. And I'm like, now I'm ready. It's taken me 10 years, but I'm going to go sing these songs, and it's just me, and I'm a singer-songwriter. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
But it's really taken me a long time, and I've had to like kind of zoom out and like process. I mean, even like a year ago from today, even though I had already recorded the solo record, which was really informing me of like a lot of those old places that I had kind of like covered up and sort of folded into the Stray Birds. There were things that were like poking through that were like, you cannot like abandon this. And I think a big challenge in the past few months since the band did end is to learn to see this solo music as kind of like there's no dichotomy. It's not like this is like the other half of the Stray Birds, or this is like instead of. It just exists, and like it has every right to exist in the world and share the air as that band. And like there was a time when that band was all of the sound that I was making, and now I'm doing this, and it doesn't it's been hard for me to not like limit it in that way, and to really own it and be like, yes, this is what I'm doing, and this is and this might be very expansive like over the course of my lifetime, because now it's just me, like, and I can change and grow in whatever direction, and I don't have to be changing and growing based on a collective decision.
Right. I noticed that the new album has some like really lovely layers of sound, which is not something we've heard before on a Stray Birds album. Stray Birds are a string band. It sounds like Lucinda Williams and Levon Helm's like dream roots Americana band. But it's almost like on your solo record, there's like this more feminine energy in the music. And I know that you had other collaborators on the record, but you were the one calling the shots 100% this time around. And do you think working on this record alone allowed you to get in touch with that energy, or am I off?
I would say yes. I think that this record, it just, there wasn't like any structure to navigate. It was just, other than the song, like there was a song and it was like a wide open landscape. And that's what I got to like step into in the studio. And Dan Knobler, who produced the album, was on the same page about that, and was really like, I even said to him, I was like, I am not playing fiddle on this record, just so you know. Like that's not where these songs are going. I'm not quite sure how to take it there. And then he was like, well, what about violin? Like, you know, I've got this friend who's a string arranger, and like I'm really hearing that kind of stuff, because I had said like, oh, this song I'm inspired by Nick Drake, and he's like, oh, like the strings and like that kind of part of that. And I think like the choice to work with Anthony DaCosta, who has this really expansive,
he's a guitar player, right?
He is a guitar player, this really expansive and creative approach on the guitar. And Jason Berger, who spent time playing as part of the band Big Thief, which is more in like the indie rock approach to songs, as far as like groove. But it just felt really freeing and really peaceful too. Like there was nothing to really be worried about. It was just, I really believed in the songs. Like I'd at this point I'd been writing for quite a while, and I've been writing a lot more than what made it onto Stray Birds Records. And I'd been writing other stuff too. I'd continued, journaling. I'd continued reading. I'd continued learning how to express things, I guess, for a long time. And so I'm actually like so grateful. I'm so grateful that I dropped out of school and played full time in a band and like learned that pace of life. And now I'm just so grateful that I actually, in a very roundabout way, like made this solo record, and I'm like at peace with it now. But it's, in the moment, like it felt like I was like visiting like a secret world when I was recording these songs, because it was the first time that I had ever really been there. And so it was a secret world that, and maybe that was like a feminine world, like you're saying, like where the energy was different, and where I, where my voice and my, possibility of like writing an album's worth of material, where like the songs lived in that world together, and kind of like, it was like a shared ecosystem or something. Like, I don't know, it really like feels, but it was like I was visiting a different world. And so that was really powerful to me, because actually physically going to that world and living inside of those songs with that band and feeling this album like come alive, it was really hard to figure out how that world was going to be integrated in like what I had known for the last, 7 years or so. Like,
yeah, sounds scary.
Yeah, it was. And I was absolutely paralyzed by it. Like, oof. I was extremely inspired and extremely paralyzed. I think probably the way that many people feel when they're in, it's funny, like I'm thinking about the title of the album now. I've never really like thought about it in this way, but I think I had sort of grown certain like adaptations to, to a certain world. And then I like realized I like needed new ones to kind of get out. Yeah, because it was like, wait, that's not the world that like this body. I mean, it was a very physical like journey of kind of like returning to like my own body and my own like soul and like what I needed to do. But it just, I didn't even know like what I needed to do. Like at the time I didn't know that the band would end. I just knew that the balance was not going to be able to continue. And I didn't know what that was going to look like.
You seem to me, we did a phone interview a couple of years ago for Stray Birds. Mm-hmm. And, since then we have gotten to know each other a little bit more, but you seem like during this interview, like so free. And it's heartening, I guess, to see that. Like, it seems like you may have been scared and paralyzed, but there had to have been a shift.
Yeah.
From that to like enjoying this process.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like a different person. And it's definitely been like a process of like self-forgiveness and acceptance. And, it was about time to learn some of those things. Yeah. Even if it's hard and even if it takes suspending. Like, I don't play music full time right now. Like, I work at Starbucks. I've been working as a barista since August. And that's been another like really grounding thing. And I'm in the transition. It's been interesting to even talk, start talking about it like this month, because finally, like I didn't even want to really like announce the record until this month, because I was like, I need at least, I will be ready to talk about this, in 2019, but I just can't do it before. Like, because I could just tell that I wasn't like there. This was not going to be some like 4-month PR campaign situation. I was like, give me like 3 weeks before the record. Like, I'll be down to talk. I need the year to change. I just need as much time as possible to really like settle.
So one last question here. You've been working with kids in Nashville with the program Bus Stop Strong.
Oh, yeah.
Are you still doing that?
Yeah. It's not a very regular thing. Like, it's just every couple weeks. Bus Stop Strong happens really regularly. There is a woman named Brenda who I met when I was just taking a walk. I moved across town, so I don't live in East Nashville anymore. But I was just taking a walk one day to watch the sunset. And she and her neighbor were sitting on their porch, and they were just yelling at me like, "Hey, who are you?" And because they didn't recognize me walking down their street. And they've got like a really strong neighborhood watch in this neighborhood. And she was really like, just like, "What are you doing?" And I was taking a picture of the sunset, and they're like, "What are you taking a picture of?" And I said, "The sunset." and they were like, "What?" So I was just like, "Yeah." And then I was like yelling at them, like, "Hey, I'm Maya. I live over there." they're like, oh, okay, well, come up on the porch and talk to us then. So I went up and so I met Brenda and she started telling me about this after school program that she does. And it's in like sort of the next zip code over from ours, which has, I guess it's like the most incarcerated zip code in the US, apparently.
Wow.
Yeah, I've just like texted a bunch of music friends a couple different times and said, hey, I'm going over to Bus Stop Strong. And we just take instruments. Like there's no real goal or anything like that yet. There's just like, I have ideas about like maybe getting some like donations to get like an instrument library where the kids could like take, you know, just like a little parlor guitar like home with them. Because some of these kids are so, they're like, they scream when you bring an instrument out of the case. Like they are so excited.
Have you even shown them the cello yet?
Yes, they have seen the cello. Yeah, we took a cello. They've seen a cello. They've seen a bass. They've seen guitars. We took an electric guitar one day, plugged it into the amp. That was cool. Definitely know about the fiddle and the banjo. They love the banjo. And yeah, so it's just to spend time with them and like to connect with a different part of Nashville. Like Nashville is an extremely segregated city and constantly shifting too because of people moving here and neighborhoods just rearranging. It's been so fascinating to just like kind of leave that kind of close immediate music scene and just be somewhere where I walk down the street and meet Miss Brenda, who runs this after school program. And now I've, you know, called on music friends to kind of go and play music in that setting and take our music into a different zip code just as guests. And, but yeah, it's really, kids just like love music. It's so beautiful to see the way that it's just so powerful. Like we went and played, I went in there with Rachel Bayman and John Weisberger and we played Christmas songs, and this really inspired me. Like a couple of the kids had learned Christmas songs like at school, and they were like raising their hands like, oh, like I want to sing a song. I want to sing a song for everyone. And we're like, okay. So like one by one, they would like come up and just like a cappella, like no accompaniment, you know, no instruments, just sing in front of like 30, 40 kids and some parents, like no fear. Like this is like a 9-year-old kid just standing in front of everybody, just singing. Yeah. And I'm just like in complete awe that is like that. There's some, I don't know. It's just like, you keep that. Like, that is so good. And then everybody cheers. And then the next kid was just like, oh, that looks fun. I want to do it too. Like, I got a song to sing for everybody. And they just go up and sing like one verse of Frosty the Snowman, and everyone cheers. And it's this is a party.
How do we get these kids to miles of music?
Oh gosh. I don't know, but that would be incredible. I'll be the, you know, whatever, the guardian or whatever, the sponsor who like, you know, make sure they find their cabin at night. But I think, yeah, there's some real desire to play and sing in that crew of kids.
Well, I think this is a good place to stop. I think it's just been so great to hear you talk about everything that you've been through, and really appreciate your time. Very generous. Thank you, Maya de Vitry.
You're welcome.
There you have it. What a great person. Oh man, I really like her. She's just, I was talking with my producer, Laura McCarthy, and I was like, you're going to really love editing this interview because Maya has like the best laugh. It's just so cheerful. I could like, you know, just talk to her all day and you know, listen to that laugh. But also got to listen to her new album, Adaptations. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, it's not on all streaming service, so you got to buy a physical copy or look to Bandcamp, which I will link at my website, cindyhouse.net. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for Basic Folk. Basic Folk is supported by Lindsay Myers from Elemento Management. If you like the artists on Basic Folk, she thinks you'll also like the songwriting duo Mick Dean at Mick Dean Sings on Instagram, or visit mickdean.co/basicfolk. And thanks to WIUP in Indiana, Pennsylvania, which airs Basic Folk 2 p.m. Eastern every Saturday. You can listen on 90.1 if you're in the Indiana, PA area, or at their website, wiupfm.org. Thanks to Laura McCarthy for producing the podcast, editing things all by herself, just really, nailing it, being a champion, a superhero. Thank you so much. Also, thank you to Alex Stanton of the Pittsburgh band Townspeople for our music on Basic Folk. I'm Cindy Howes. Thank you, dear listener, for checking out the podcast. Please subscribe, tell your friends about it, tell your friends who are folk music nerds like you and me, and we'll talk to you next week. All right, bye.